I'm Rebecca Connolly, author of a new title in historical fiction, Under the Cover of Mercy. Under the Cover of Mercy is one of the few books available about the incredible story of Edith Cavell, who was a British nurse during World War I and a pioneer in modern nursing care, who helped hundreds of Allied soldiers escape German-occupied Belgium once they came into her care after being wounded. She was arrested by the German military police, court-martialed, and executed by firing squad, and her death became a rallying cry used by the Allies to gain support for the war effort against the brutality of the Germans. If you Google her name and World War I propaganda, you'll see recruitment posters, which were very effective in getting more men to join the fight. This book is about an incredible woman, Edith Cavell, the mother of modern nursing, who was working at an educational medical institute in Brussels, Belgium, at the outbreak of World War I. Belgium had just been invaded by the Germans and put under a military government. Like any good nurse, Edith goes to the authorities and assures them that her facility and her nurses would treat all patients fairly, objectively, and to the utmost degree of their abilities. In return, Edith is requested to act as jailer for the prisoner of war soldiers that the Germans bring for treatment. This does not fly. She's a healer, not a jailer. And that is where our story begins. I wrote this book because I was inspired by a woman who was able to do the right thing regardless of her harrowing circumstances. I think we need to be reminded of the inspirational figures during seemingly dark moments, and I felt passionate about bringing Edith Cavell back into the light for modern readers. Not only was she changing the world of nursing in Europe, but when the opportunity arose to hide 2 wounded British soldiers from the German authorities, she made the choice to do so, tending to their wounds and keeping them safe until they were well enough to cross the border to safety. In doing so, Edith became involved in a deep program of resistance in which she would play a crucial role. Edith Cavell was a hero for her commitment to her principles, her dedication to her patients, her bravery in the face of powerful opposition, and frankly, she was working in a war zone at a time when women were thought to be unable to handle the horrors of war. Soldiers were coming back from battle lines with shrapnel embedded in their bodies, limbs amputated, blinded by gas poisoning, skin tore apart by barbed wire they had to crawl over, and yet she did not shrink. She was a woman of great faith and dignity, and would have been quite a surprising figure in the resistance against the German military government, given her devotion to healing people and commitment to peace. Who would have pegged a quiet and composed British nurse with a religious background to do anything daring? There were a lot of blanks to fill with this story, given the lack of existing records. But what does exist gave a pretty good view of the woman Edith was. I struggled with figuring out the right balance between truth and fiction, and given all of this, but where speculation was needed, I had the insights of those who knew Edith to follow. Hopefully, what fiction there is remains true to the person Edith was and the truth by which she lived. Her service to her fellow man, her devotion to her country, her sacrifice for the greater good. Those were the principles by which she lived and served as a guide to me in telling her story. I want readers of this book to discover a new historical figure who, to me, set a high standard of honor and duty. Shortly before she died, Edith told the Reverend Gahan that she knew she must have no hatred or bitterness towards anyone. This was her statement after she had already been arrested, court-martialed, and condemned to death. This was just a few hours before she would be shot by a firing squad. I'd like her story to inspire more people to have an appreciation for history, as learning about Edith Cavell did for me. This woman who acted courageously during a horrifying, brutal war that cost so many lives became a symbol of hope and of resistance against tyranny. She inspired an entire generation, and yet I didn't even know her name. Some of her fellow comrades in the resistance continued their work when World War II broke out, and I have no doubt that had she lived, Edith would have done the same. Devotion, fortitude, sacrifice, and humanity are the words chosen to honor Edith on the monument to her in London, and I cannot think of a more fitting tribute. Under the Cover of Mercy, the story of Edith Cavell is out now.